Here now with reaction, Fox News contributor Ari Fleischer, the Harris poll chairman, Mark Penn, along with pollster Lee Carter. You know, Ari, I began specifically with those pieces from the Washington Post and Politico. They have a lot of sources in Democrat circles. This is based on at least 42 Democrat sources. There's a lot of angst. You know this. We're both former press secretaries. You don't want these pieces landing on your desk.
No, and let me talk about one of my favorite things in that Washington Post article. It was Democrats at the White House saying they want him to walk less, so the public doesn't see him have difficulty walking. So what's the most concrete thing they've done? They have stopped him from walking up the big, majestic steps to the top of Air Force One, and he goes in the baby steps on the bottom. But Kayleigh, as you know, once you enter the bottom level of Air Force One, there's no elevator. There's nothing that gets you to the higher levels, making it easier. There's an inner staircase. So the only thing they're doing is hiding Joe Biden. There is no reason to have him take those lower steps. Nothing is easier for him. He still has to climb, but it's the only way they can hide him. And that's unfortunately the reality of what you have to deal with when you're dealing with an 81-year-old. They are hiding the president so the country cannot see the difficulties he has. That's a shame. That is not what you do with a president.
It's basement campaign 2.0, except this time it's the Oval Office. You know, Mark, in one of these pieces, Ron Klain was asked at one of these swanky events that both parties have. He was asked, you know, what's the backup plan? To which he replied, there is no backup plan. That seems inconceivable to me, given the polling, given the president's age. Do you think there's a backup plan?
When your age is twice your approval rating, that is a problem. No question about it. But I don't think that there's going to be a change here in the nominee. In that NBC poll, 77% of Democrats picked Biden for the nominee. He's got the full party machinery. He wants to run again. He is running. So I don't think there's a plan B. Biden has a year. I've worked with presidents before, so has Ari. A year is a long time in presidential history. And let's face it, if people thought the economy was going well, they wouldn't care about his age. It's really about the economy, immigration, crime, and key issues he's got a year to fix.
Yeah, a year's a long time, Lee. And I mean, you look at the polls, 8 national polls have Trump beating Biden. That's got to cause trepidation among Democrats. But among Republicans, polls haven't always translated to electoral victories. I think of the red wave, for instance. So where are we?
When you look at what happened with the red wave, there was something else that was going on there, though, because a lot of people were saying that the economy was the #1 concern, but really there was also abortion on the ballot and a lot of women's issues that hurt Democrats, hurt Republicans. In addition, there were a lot of weak candidates on the Republican ticket. So this is a very different situation because you're looking at polling that says this is Trump versus Biden, not just generic ballot. Just this is exactly what people are looking at. It does not look good for Joe Biden right now. And there's a couple of things that I would be most concerned about if I were him. Number one, he is losing significant numbers among younger voters. He carried young voters by a lot last time. It doesn't look like he's going to be able to do that. The other thing that is really damning in some of these polls is his favorability among independents. 2 and 3 are saying they look at him unfavorably. 65% of even Democrats say they don't think he's mentally fit for office. So these numbers are really, really staggering, and he can't just get through them by denying it. And he's not going to be able to do it by hiding either. I mean, to Ari's point, you can't stop him from walking. You can't stop him from talking. He's got to get out there and tell his story. And, you know, you heard Yellen today say it's her job to tell his story. No, it's not. It's his job. He's got to get out there and convince the American people he's up for the job. And right now, it's not looking good.
Ari, you know, to that point, you know, I worked on a campaign. You always know the Achilles heel of your boss. You know their strengths. You know their weaknesses. This is a huge weakness for Biden, his age. How, as a team, do you unwind that? Do you reverse the perception, rather, of the American people?
Well, there's only one way, and that's to turn him into Benjamin Button and watch him get younger. And that's not going to happen. And so it really is a huge problem for the Democrats. And then what a massive opportunity for Republicans, whether the nominee is President Trump or Nikki Haley or somebody else. As I've liked to say, and I've said it forever, don't compare Donald Trump to the almighty. Compare him to the alternative. And the alternative is Joe Biden. I'm just struck by how the Democrats are committing political suicide. It is beyond belief that they are putting up the worst two candidates against Donald Trump in the country. There is nobody who would lose easier to Donald Trump than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, yet that is the path that Democrats are on. It's inexplicable. And that's why I think you're going to see huge pressure built around Joe Biden to get him to drop out right before the convention.
I think that pressure is going to build. Mark, in the wake of the 2023 elections, not a good night for Republicans yet again. Not a good night in 2022 for Republicans. But in the wake of that election, Politico said there are two camps of Democrats. There's the time to freak out Democrats because they see the weakness of Joe Biden. And there's the time to chill out Democrats because they keep doing well in elections. Which camp are you, chill out or freak out?
I've been in the freakout camp for a long time. I've been calling attention to these same numbers. I mean, Trump has been ahead in the Harris polls for months. Biden's been in this kind of doldrums. Particularly, I thought he had a very bad summer. But I come back to, Biden, like Trump, in many ways, has managed to have 9 lives time and time again. Everybody thought he was out, last time in the Democratic primary, and suddenly he was in. Everybody thought he was going to lose, and he went and he won. So I do think you're going to see Democrats hold on to that. But the reality is we've got to see economic improvement. That's what this election is really about, not about age.
Lee, one thing that Biden team has done well is mobilize an army of influencers to reach Gen Z, to reach millennials. You mentioned Trump is doing very well with this cohort, unusually well for any Republican. But the day before the midterms, Biden brought all the TikTok influencers into the Oval, in the days before, I should say, with an aggregate following of 67 million. Obama met with them. They toured D.C. How powerful and how difficult is that to combat this army of influencers that has a huge megaphone?
Be really hard to combat the army of influencers because they can mobilize on key issues. Because some of the polling that I've seen suggests that 7 in 10 independent women are going to be driven to the polls this election cycle because of abortion. In 3 of our key states, abortion is going to be on the ballot. 7 in 10 independent women, 9 in 10 Democratic women. And so if influencers are really able to get out there and mobilize on that issue, I don't think they're going to be able to mobilize on Joe Biden, but if they're going to be able to mobilize on women's issues, they could have a lot of success. And I think that Republicans must come up with an answer that is an all of the above answer. That isn't just to say they don't have to change their position on abortion, but what they do need to do is change perceptions on how they view women. And so they need to come up with a women's agenda that are going to mobilize them just as much, because these influencers are going to be hard to beat, especially on that particular issue.
Great point. Ari Fleischer, Mark Penn, Lee Carter, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.